So I think I've reached a new low when it comes to coronavirus. I'm now actually wanting to share stories on a social media website versus actually socializing with another individual. So you can take it for what it's worth. So today's story is actually about that one time that I had a flight instructor who actually had a full cup of coffee and I was doing airplane stall. If you've done training to actually get a pilot's license, it's like one of the first 5 lessons that they teach you how to get out of a stall. And so a stall is basically you increase the angle of attack of an airplane to the point where the airflow across the wing is not enough to sustain flight. That's the proper definition of a stall. The thing is that when you're actually performing the stall, there's 2 types of stalls. One of them is a power on stall and the other one is a power off stall. Power on stall, it means that you have the airplane in full throttle and you're basically just putting it into an upward climb until the airplane drops, which is kind of fun. The power off stall is a little bit different, and it's typically done on landing. So if you are performing a power off stall in training, it's always because the only time that you would actually encounter such a scenario is on final approach for an airport. So what happens? You're coming in for landing, you have the engine off, you see a bird in front of you, you don't want to hit the bird, so you actually pull up on the yoke and you stall the aircraft right there before the ground. That's what a power off stall is. So back to the story. I had this flight instructor, and the instructor himself, he used to be a military aviator for decades. I don't know. The guy basically ate, slept, drank, military. But this guy, he was pretty hardcore. He and I got into a Cessna 152. It's a high wing 2-seater aircraft. It's basically a kite with a motor. So we started flying and he's like, alright, so I'm going to go ahead and perform a stall. And I look over and here he is. He's going to perform this stall and he's got this small cup of coffee. It is to the rim and he's taking small sips. You know, and I'm thinking, oh geez, how in the world are you not going to drop this cup of coffee in this airplane? So he performs one of the stalls. It's a power on stall. He does it completely one-handed. He even, to actually pilot an airplane, you have to use both hands. And by have to use both hands, I mean you have one hand on the yoke and you've got one hand on the throttle, as well as the air mixture ratio, like anything else that you need over here on the right hand side. Anyways, so he basically does this stall one-handed where he's got the cup of coffee in his right hand and he's got the yoke in the left hand. He actually starts to maneuver all the throttle and gears and everything with his left and he performs the stall. He kicks the airplane a little bit to the right, levels it out, and he gives me back the airplane and he says, alright, your turn. At this point, I am scared to death because the drop on that airplane was immense, or at least for me at that point in time. And so I go ahead and I start to fly the airplane and he says, alright, so let's go ahead and perform a stall, a power on stall. So I've got the throttle full in, put the airplane into an angle of attack, and from there, the airplane drops, simulate the recovery, and I look over and I'm fully expecting like this cup of coffee to be in his shirt, on his lap, him like scalding, him basically cursing at me without the microphone. But no, this guy has his full cup of coffee and just leisurely taking sips. How in the world do you actually get to a point in time where you can actually feel the stall? Must have been doing it for just decades, which is potential. Very potential. But my dad and I were actually flying the other day and we went and did really steep turns. So when you do a turn, there's the standard turn rate, which you feel in a commercial airliner, and it's a 20-degree turn. It's always a 20-degree turn. You have a 2-minute turn. So if the airplane did a 360, then you would do a 360 in 2 minutes every time. Not only is it every time, it is 100% of the time. Same altitude. But when you are actually getting your pilot's license, you tend to do turns at a little bit of a steeper rate. So you can actually do the standard turn, which is 20 degrees, and then you can do a steeper turn, which is 45 degrees. And the 45-degree turn, when you start to try to hold that altitude, you have to increase power in the engine, and you also have to pull back on the yoke so that you don't lose altitude. Because, for all you smart people out there, in physics, you have gravity, which is pushing down, and you have your lift, which is going at a 45-degree angle. Therefore, you're not getting as much lift as you were with a 20-degree turn, which means you have to pull back on the yoke more to sustain your altitude. Smarties. Anyways, so we're doing steep turns around my house. I'm getting photos. I'll actually post one of the photos that we took on that flight of our house. And while we were doing it, he was pulling back on the yoke, and we actually technically stalled the aircraft for a period of time while we were doing the steep turn. So think of power on, stall, and we've lost airflow across the wing. That's bad. So what does my dad do? He pushes in the throttle, and the airplane lurched. It actually lurched. And I'm not just talking like a small gradual lurch where, you know, you're in a car and you basically push down on the gas pedal and you're feeling like the acceleration. No. It's basically the only way that I can describe the acceleration in like a Tesla Model X. You push down fully on the gas pedal and your body shifts itself into the cushions of the car. There's nothing else like it. And that's what I felt in that airplane the other day. Anyways, I hope that you guys are having a great Wednesday, and I will give you guys another story later.